Okay, we are now into part 5 of the full lawsuit readout. Let's get right back into it. WSU brings Koberger to the Pullman, Moscow community and quickly learns of his threatening, stalking, and predatory behavior. Born in 1994, Brian Koberger grew up in rural eastern Pennsylvania. In high school, Koberger was overweight, bullied, and had difficulty developing relationships with female students. It was later reported that Koberger has autism spectrum disorder. Later in school, Koberger lost significant weight and became more aggressive with classmates. Over a number of years before he came to the Pullman, Moscow community, Koberger made numerous public posts on an online forum called the, quote, Visual Snow or Static Forum. People with visual snow report seeing small, moving dots across their field of vision. Koberger posted about his, quote, crazy thoughts, depersonalization, inability to feel emotion, that he was a, quote, blank soul, and his despair. Koberger posted online that, quote, as I hug my family, I look into their faces. I see nothing. It is like I am looking at a video game, but less. Koberger wrote that he could do, quote, whatever I want with little remorse. Koberger also wrote about an array of mental health challenges that he faced, including anxiety, depression, depersonalization, lack of emotion, and his constant thought of self-exit. Koberger also developed a heroin addiction while in high school that he funded in part by theft. Koberger attended a law enforcement vocational program in high school, but was kicked out of the program his junior year due to a series of complaints from female classmates. According to the administrator of the program, to be removed from a program, the conduct has to be pretty severe. Koberger was then transferred to an HVAC vocational program because it did not have any female participants. Koberger did not attend the vocational program his senior year and finished his high school degree online, graduating from Pleasant Valley High School in 2013. In 2014, Koberger was arrested in Pennsylvania for theft. Koberger went to attend DeSales University in Pennsylvania, seeking a graduate degree in criminology. At DeSales, Koberger demonstrated a particular fascination with serial killers. Also, while there, Koberger reportedly made multiple women uncomfortable. Employees at local businesses in Koberger's community were so concerned about his behavior that they took extraordinary measures. For example, female staff at a local brewery complained about Koberger's behavior and even made a note in their electronic ID system that would warn staff about his conduct when his ID was scanned. The female staff noted that Koberger would make creepy comments and ask probing questions like where they lived, and he would get upset if they did not answer. After obtaining his master's degree from DeSales, Koberger applied to the PhD program at WSU. Koberger was selected for the criminal justice program by a WSU panel. WSU also hired Koberger to be a teaching assistant. As part of this employment, WSU provided him with reduced free tuition by giving him a non-resident tuition waiver, on-campus office, on-campus housing, health insurance benefits, and paid him a bi-weekly salary. As a result of WSU accepting and hiring Koberger, he moved from Pennsylvania to Pullman, Washington in July 2022. In fact, the terms of WSU's agreements with Koberger required that he live in Washington in order to receive the benefits that WSU was offering to him. Koberger would later tell law enforcement that he did not know much about Washington or Idaho, and that prior moving to Washington, he had not left the tri-state area much in the Atlantic Northeast. In fact, before WSU hired Koberger, he had never been to the Pacific Northwest. On July 9, 2022, shortly after arriving at WSU, Koberger attended a pool party in nearby Moscow, Idaho. Moscow, Idaho is the home of the University of Idaho and is less than 10 miles from the WSU campus in Pullman, Washington. These two universities are the primary employers in both of their respective counties. As neighboring small college towns, there's expected and considerable interaction between the students enrolled at WSU and the students at the University of Idaho. As evidence of that well-recognized fact, the probable cause affidavit that ultimately was used to obtain an arrest warrant for Koberger, signed under penalty of perjury by Corporal Brett Payne of the Moscow, Idaho Police Department, states both Pullman and Moscow are small college towns, and people commonly travel back and forth between them. For over 50 years, WSU and the University of Idaho have cooperated on sharing academic resources and have enriched educational opportunities through the sharing of faculty, facilities, and ideas. WSU and the University of Idaho allow students at each school to take courses at the other school. WSU and the University of Idaho have cooperative programs and cross-listed courses. The presidents and provosts at University of Idaho and WSU stated that for years, the University of Idaho and Washington State University have been offering courses together to allow a variety and robust educational experience for our students. In fact, the WSU Criminal Justice and Criminology Department regularly interacts with professors and students enrolled at the University of Idaho. The WSU Criminal Justice and Criminology program advertises on its main webpage its relationship with the University of Idaho. And in the court document, they submitted a screenshot showing that. The WSU Criminal Justice and Criminology program also offers a study abroad program to University of Idaho students that it promotes on its website. Moscow, Idaho, and Pullman, Washington are often referred to together as the Pullman-Moscow or Moscow-Pullman area. The United States Census Bureau has combined statistical area for the cities of Moscow and Pullman that has the official name Pullman-Moscow, Washington, Idaho, CSA. The Pullman-Moscow region is also known collectively as the, I may be saying this wrong, Palaus. The Pullman-Moscow region shares many common resources and the communities cooperate with each other. The regional airport serving the cities is the Pullman-Moscow Regional Airport, and the local newspaper is the Moscow Pullman Daily News. There's also cooperation in the Pullman-Moscow region on the issue of public safety. The Pullman Police Department and Moscow Police Department have formal mutual aid agreements and routinely cooperate on law enforcement matters and emergency dispatch services. The city of Moscow contracts with WICOM in Pullman for all of its dispatching and emergency 911 services. WICOM is an agency that consists of the County of Whitman, City of Pullman, and WSU. According to the Moscow Police Department, the partnership with WICOM has provided the community of Moscow and the university. The July 2022 pool party, attended by Koberger, was located near the University of Idaho campus at an off-campus apartment complex called The Grove at Moscow. The Grove apartment complex is a mere 1 mile distance from the home of the 4 students that would later be murdered by Koberger. Koberger had been invited to the Moscow, Idaho pool party by another WSU student, and many of the people attending the party were graduate students. Koberger made multiple females uncomfortable at the pool party in Moscow, Idaho. When Koberger arrived to the pool party, he approached a female student from the University of Idaho that was in the properties office and asked how to get to the pool. She was wearing a sundress with a swimsuit underneath. She reported that Koberger was blatantly staring at her body and acted weird. When she later went to the pool, Koberger made very direct eye contact with her and then made a beeline towards her. She was uncomfortable and weirded out by Koberger's behavior and his staring. The interaction was concerning enough that another attendee intervened to intercept Koberger. Another female attendee told Koberger that she was married in an attempt to end the conversation, but Koberger persisted in engaging with her. A male attendee finally had to physically intervene, but Koberger continued to be fixated on the girls. Another female attendee also reported that Koberger behaved oddly at the pool party and gave an off vibe that caused her to keep her eye on him. On August 17, 2022, the WSU graduate program hosted a meet and greet event on the WSU campus. Koberger attended, and fellow graduate students noted that they did not like their interactions with him. At the graduate school orientation in August 2022, a fellow WSU graduate student instantly had a bad feeling about Koberger from the moment that he approached her. A fellow WSU graduate teaching assistant quickly identified Koberger as a threat, quote, "Pretty early on, I started leaving my office door open when he was in his office, especially if there was ever a student in there, because I just wanted to make sure that nothing was inappropriate. Like, I felt way early on that this guy was going to do something inappropriate with a student," end quote. The teaching assistant indicated that she picked Koberger as a stalker or sexual assaulter type. Most, if not all, of Koberger's fellow graduate students were also teaching assistants or research assistants employed by WSU, and as such were mandatory reporters of any instances of sexual discrimination, sexual harassment, and stalking under WSU policies and title. Some instances of Koberger's discriminatory, harassing, and stalking behavior were reported to WSU administrators, but many instances went unreported in violation of WSU policies and Title VI. Koberger's supervising instructor at WSU were aware early on that the female graduate students did not like Koberger because he was so off-putting, and that several female graduate students were very uncomfortable because of interactions they had with Koberger. Koberger was known by WSU professors and fellow students to have a particular interest in studying sexually motivated burglars and to be obsessed with serial unalivers. One fellow WSU graduate student reported that based on how Koberger talks to and treats women, people in the WSU criminal justice program thought he was a, quote, possible future apist. During the second or third week of the semester, a female WSU graduate student hosted the whole graduate cohort at her apartment to watch a ball game. Koberger attended the event. Afterward, Koberger began telling others about prescriptions that she took, leading the graduate student to suspect that he had looked through her medicine cabinet while attending the event at her apartment. Female graduate students would complain that Koberger made them uncomfortable, feel unsafe, that he was creepy, and would try to distance themselves from him, including physically spacing out from Koberger in classrooms. There were numerous instances where Koberger would stare at students weirdly during class, making students uncomfortable. Koberger's supervising instructor at WSU believed that Koberger did this in a way to display power or dominance. Koberger's supervising instructor also was aware of a complaint made by a senior student that Koberger stared at her a lot in class and that it made her feel uncomfortable. Koberger would engage in similar inappropriate behavior with WSU instructors. The instructor under whom Koberger served as her undergraduate teaching assistant reported that she would regularly interact with him and that he was frequently in her office. The instructor stated that Koberger would stand behind her while she was working at her desk and stare over her shoulder at her. This instructor had another WSU professor escort her to her car at the end of the workday because Koberger's behavior was of such concern. Koberger's inappropriate behavior with this instructor was also reported to other WSU professors. Another female WSU staff member described Koberger as, quote, creepy, and stated that he would simply stand at her desk and stare at her or her coworker. She also observed Koberger physically block her coworker in her desk area. Koberger would also follow this female staffer and her coworker to their cars at the end of the day, causing her to arrange for escorts at 5 p.m. after work to safely get to their cars. That's going to be the end of part 5. I will see you as we